Week 10 of the NFL season is upon us. Today, I want to talk about my 3 favorite picks plus 2 extra leans for this upcoming Sunday slate. Yo, what's going on? My name's Austin from Calling Our Shot. First, before we dive into those, I want to talk about how last week's video did, as well as the week as a whole, because it wasn't good. This video alone went 0-3. The silver lining was our leans did go 2-0 for the third straight week, so we had the right plays. It just chose the wrong ones, and it just hasn't been a great NFL season so far to date. And last week as a whole, 2-3 on game picks, 2-5 on player props. Just wasn't that great, but you guys, it's my mission to get us back on track. We're still profitable this year, but it's definitely not as good as the years we've had in the past. So we're going to dive in. Parlays and player props will be live on Friday at noon Eastern time. If you want to set your alarm clocks for that, we're going to dive in. This is going to be a good week for us. Promise you that. Our Thursday night football video will be live later tonight, Wednesday night, so you can check out that if you are watching this before the Thursday night football game. But without further ado, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, comment your favorite play for Sunday. Let's dive into my first pick this week. Going with the Buffalo Bills, taking their spread, -5.5, which is currently -110 on FanDuel, as they take on the Minnesota Vikings. And this arguably is probably the biggest matchup this weekend. We see the 6-2 Bills play host to the Minnesota Vikings, who are 7-1. And in Week 9, the Bills suffer their second loss of the season as they lost to the New York Jets. And as a New York Jets fan, didn't expect us to win that game, but it was a gutsy one. We were able to get it done, playing some very good defense, and Josh Allen played one of his worst games to date. He did not play well. He threw 2 interceptions, which is actually back-to-back games of 2 interceptions. He didn't even throw a touchdown pass. He did run in 2 touchdowns, so I guess that kind of equals it out. But I look for him to get back on track in Week 10. I know he has some sort of injury, but I expect him to be out there, be able to play through it. And the Bills have been great at home this season, winning by 34, 35, and 10 points. In fact, they've won 13 of their last 16 home games, covering this point total, and all 13 of their wins. The only other 3 games they didn't cover, they lost those outright. And since 2020, Buffalo 14-7-2 against the spread as a home team, the best in the NFL. We saw the Vikings stumble a little bit in Week 9 against the Commanders. They were down. They had to come back and winning that game by 3 points. But they showed some signs of weakness, and this will be the best team they've played since they played the Eagles back in Week 2. And that was a game they lost by 17 points, also on the road. I just think the Bills get back on track here. I think the Vikings are a decent, very solid team, but I think the Bills beat them at least by a touchdown. I think the defense gets back on track. The offense gets back on track, led by Josh Allen. And I got to take the Bills, -5.5. I know it's a lot of points to cover against the 7-1 team, but Bills are great at home, great in a bounce back spot. But around with the Bills, -5.5. Now let's keep it moving to my second pick. I'm going to go with the Browns, +3.5 versus the Dolphins. It's currently -110 across the books. It could go to +4. It was at +4, then it dropped to +3.5. And I got to give credit where credit is due. Tua Tagovailoa and the Dolphins offense looked about as good as people could have expected and wanted to hope coming into the season, knowing that they had Tua, they had Tyreek Hill now, and Jalen Waddle. People didn't know exactly what it looked like. This is about the best recipe they could have had, and they've looked pretty solid. But the same can't be said about their defense. I know they went and got Bradley Chubb. He made some plays last week against the Bears, but the defense have allowed 24-plus points in 5 of their last 6 games. And here comes the Browns offense with arguably the best rushing attack in the NFL. And I believe the Browns have the recipe for success to not only cover, but also beat the Dolphins. And I'm not picking the Dolphins to lose this game outright and pick the Browns, but I think the Browns could keep this game within 3 points, which would win this bet at +3.5. The Browns had a bye last week, so they had more time to prepare for this game. And that was off after a big victory over the Bengals, 32-13, moving them to 3-5. This is still a must-win game for them. We know at the end of the day, probably the Dolphins will be in that, wild card discussion, and the Browns need to have the win against the Dolphins in order to, have that leg up on them. I don't think they want to drop to 3-6, and the same could be said about the Dolphins. They obviously don't want to lose this game, but the Browns, despite only being 3-5, every single one of their games has been close. They've only had that one loss to the Patriots by 23. All 4 of their other losses have come by 3 or less, covering this line, and the Browns have the rushing attack to not only control the clock, keep the ball out of Tua's hands, make this Dolphins offense have less possessions, and that's a way to beat them. They have this Browns offensive rushing attack. They got the offensive line. They got Nick Chubb. They don't have to worry about Kareem Hunt asking for a trade because the trade deadline's passed, and they have the guys on the end to rush the quarterback and make Tua uncomfortable. Myles Garrett can come off the edge. Jadeveon Clowney, I don't know his health status. He hasn't been as good as they would have hoped this season, but Myles Garrett can wreck any single game, and if he can force Tua to throw the ball early, we could see maybe the Browns pull off a sneaky victory here. Not backing them to win this game, but +3.5, I think they get a good chance to get it done. I know the Dolphins have won 3 in a row, looking very good, but the defense hasn't looked good. They have their bye week next week. Maybe they slip up going into the bye. Give me the Browns +3.5 as my second pick of the week. For my third and final pick before we talk about 2 leans, this one's not going to be popular in the comment section. I like the Packers, +5.5, -110 on BetMGM. If no one's going to bet on the Packers this week, You bet I will, because I know the Packers, and I know they're not going to get more than 20% of the bets this weekend. And you know what? I don't want to be on the side of the public that gets over 80% of the bets, especially with a team like the Cowboys there. The public's going to be hammering the Cowboys. And I don't blame them. The Packers have lost 5 in a row. The Packers have looked terrible. And they just lost. That culminated by a division loss to the Lions. A lot of people thought, no chance they lose to the Lions. Yeah, no, they did. And now they return to Lambeau Field, and they got 4 games for their bye week. So no help is coming soon. They need to turn it around. I think they can turn it around against the Cowboys. I'm not saying they beat the Cowboys outright, but this is a must-have game where they at least look competitive. They need some momentum, and they have no momentum going their way. While the Cowboys, 6-2, coming off their bye week, they've been dominating teams. You saw them spank the Bears right before their bye week, but Vegas and the sportsbooks know better. They would have put the Packers as double-digit underdogs. They've done it before. They're not afraid to put the Packers as big underdogs if they think they're going to get smacked. I just don't think they do get smacked in this one. The Packers have the talent on the defensive side, especially. Offense has been the struggle. They got into the red zone several times against the Lions. Interceptions. They just couldn't convert for it. But this line's only 5.5 points, and I think the Packers can keep it down. I think they can get it done. I know this is kind of like Austin. This is sketchy, and I know it's sketchy, but I think the Packers are the right play here. They're the sharp side. I think they're decent enough to cover this line. They only lost by 10 to the Bills. Not great, but they're back at home in Lambeau Field. I just think this is ultimately you got to have it. This is a game they have to have. Dropping to 3-7. I don't know. If they got 4 games for their bye, they got tough schedule coming up. This is a game they have to have at home, and I don't necessarily think the Packers win this outright. Still would lean the Cowboys, but this is a game you got to go out there, put on a good product in front of your fans, or else you're going to be getting booed. And I bet you they do get booed a little bit in this one, but Packers will show up on Sunday. I'm taking them plus 5.5. It's almost ultimately just a gut call pick. I think the Packers can get it done, at least covering this for us. Give me them plus 5.5. I know it's sketchy. It's probably the sketchiest pick I have of the 3 today, but I just think they get it done. Now let's move on to some leans. Last week we had the Titans plus 12.5, almost winning outright. Same with the Commanders plus 3.5, both do covering. That's 6 leans in a row that have hit. I don't necessarily know if the leans will hit this week. They're a little bit, different, but hey, if they keep it going, hopefully you guys are tailing them. I'm not putting any money on them, but if they help you out, cool. If they don't, they don't. But let's talk about the first one. I like the Steelers plus 2.5 versus the Saints, and these are leans, so I'm not going to track them towards my record win or loss, although I wish I could track them at this rate since they've been winning a lot. But I look at this matchup, 2 teams where you look at a couple of years back, you'd think, this is a great matchup. This would be on, 425 time slot. Everyone would be tuning in to watch the Steelers versus Saints. Not this year. 3-6 versus a 2-6 team. And I'm just taking this team coming off a bye week. We faded the Saints on Monday Night Football. We're going to fade them again if I had to on Sunday. The Saints, or the Steelers, like I said, coming off a bye, which should prove big, development opportunities for their new QB, Kenny Pickett, the rookie. He was just thrown into the QB position mid-season, and having a whole week and 2 weeks technically to really prepare for this game and really get his mind right and really focus on what he was struggling with the first couple weeks of him starting, I think will lean big dividends. You also look at the Saints. They haven't been great on the road, just 1-2 straight up. And I know the Steelers, just a yucky game, low over under. I think the Steelers ultimately can win this game. They're at home. I think they can come out with a win against the Andy Dalton and the Saints, whoever they're starting at QB, if it's still Andy Dalton. I don't trust their defense. Their offense is still and I just think the Steelers come out and win at home. I'd be backing them if I had to, plus 2.5. Give me the Steelers. Now, as for my second lean, we'll go to one, and actually the earliest game. We're going to Germany, Munich, Germany to be exact. I like the Buccaneers minus 2.5 versus the Seahawks. Now, look, a lot of people are not going to bet on the Buccaneers, and that's understandable. The Buccaneers haven't looked good, and it did take a heroic and basically a miracle to win against the Rams and cover their 2.5-point spread last week. But they got it done, and maybe that leads to some momentum coming into this Week 10 showdown, where they have to obviously travel to Germany to play a surprise team in the Seahawks. Seahawks have really looked impressive. They're playing non-hero ball. They're just basically winning as a team, which you love to see in the NFL. I just think at the end of the day, the Buccaneers can beat this team because this Seahawks team wants to rely on the run with Kenneth Walker to third. They want to run the football. The Buccaneers, hard to run against their front seven, so not going to be a lot of play action passes. And I think Todd Bowles can kind of concoct a good enough defensive game plan to get Geno Smith uncomfortable. I know they got DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and whatnot, but I just think at the end of the day, Tom Brady and this Bucs team, I think they're going to build on momentum from last week's heroic win. I think they're going to keep it going this week. I think they're going to take down the Seahawks, a team that people are pretty high on. People are going to bet on the Seahawks a lot over the Buccaneers, but I think the Buccaneers get it done. Minus 2.5, basically their money line in this one. I don't see this game being a 2 or 1 point game, so give me the Bucs minus the 2.5 if I had to. That's my second lean for the video. But as always, that's going to wrap it up. Our Falcons, Panthers, Thursday Night Football best bets will be live on the screen. You can click on that video if you want to. If you want to check out once that's live on Wednesday night. If you want to check out our parlays and and player props. I'll put that on the video on the screen, but that won't be live until Friday at noon Eastern time. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys all for the support. Sportsbook sign-up links down below in the description. Let's have a bounce-back week. Let's crush the rest of the books, the rest of the NFL season. See you guys back in other videos. Peace out.